Hi, I'm Carmen DeVito, garden designer here in New York City. And for my last video of 2020, we have gone inside because it's close to freezing outside now in New York. And I'm going to share how to grow some of my favorite holiday plants. So let's get started. We're going to start with the easiest and then work our way up to the most difficult to take care of. So the one that I think is the most easy to take care of is the poinsettia. And most people are familiar with this plant. They're probably familiar with the red or white one, but I want to show you some other colors that are available this year that I got kind of really excited about. And there are these pink ones. I purchased 3 different shades of pink, and I really love them, along with a white one. And I prefer them to the red ones, and these are nice and bushy. This one is called Pink Dark. And I don't know what this one is called, but they're really beautiful. So my theme this year is going to kind of be pinks and whites. So when you're buying a poinsettia, what you want to look for is that it looks healthy, not dried out, no foliage wilted. And then you want to look at these bracts here. I mean, these flowers here, these are the true flowers of the poinsettia, and they need to be nice and tight. If they're burst open and bright yellow, that means that the plant is a little bit past its prime. So you want to make sure that these are nice and tight. These are not actually the flowers, but these are actually the bracts. So this plant is a native of Mexico. It's named after, I think, the first ambassador, Joel Poinsett. He's the one that kind of introduced this to the American market and thought it would be a good holiday plant. So you want to keep these well watered but not sopping wet. And being that they're native to Mexico and Central America, you want to keep them in a warm and pretty bright room to keep their color. Now, as they fade and they last for many, many weeks, what I like to do is I take off the bad foliage, I take off any parts that are looking poor, and I kind of keep it clean so that it doesn't get a fungus or disease. So just keep it moist and in a bright, relatively warm room, and they should last for many, many weeks. So that's poinsettia. Now let's talk about paperwhites. Also super easy. So they're called paperwhites, but they're actually a narcissus. And if you watch my video about fall bulbs, we talked about narcissus that were for outdoors. Now these are narcissus, but we don't grow them outdoors in this climate because it's too cold. And what the grower has done here, I haven't potted these up, I bought them like this, is he's forced them. So he's made them go through a cold period, and then he's potted them up and they're gonna bloom. I love these because they have a beautiful fragrance. Some people hate the way they smell and think that they smell like cat pee. One of those people is my husband, but I still buy it anyway. And these are really easy to grow. If you buy the bulbs, you can pot them in soil or in gravel, and they are the easiest plants. You just got to keep them relatively moist. And both of these plants, the poinsettia and the paperwhites, I think of them as disposable. I don't try to get the poinsettia to rebloom and put it in a closet. They're relatively inexpensive nowadays. So when the season is over and they're looking poor, I just put them in the compost pile. And that's it. So now let's talk about some bulbs and some plants that are a little bit more challenging to grow. Okay, now let's talk about cyclamen. Now this isn't a bulb like the Amaryllis or the paperwhite, but it does grow from something called a corm. And I want you to see how many it's like a potato. You can't really see it here, it's below the soil, but you can see all the tiny flowers and leaves coming up from the bottom. So this is Cyclamen persicum. It's the Florist Cyclamen. And they come in tons of colors, but here are 2 basic sizes. This is the small flowering one with a small leaf, and this is the kind of larger flowering one. And these are like some of my favorite winter flowering plants. What is a little bit challenging about them is that if you overwater them or put them in a really hot room, they don't do well. So to do well with these, you need a bright room, not super sunny, on the cool side, but not drafty, and do not overwater them and try not to get the leaves or the flowers wet. If you can do that, these are great and they will bloom for weeks and weeks and weeks. And what's beautiful about them is even when the flowers are done, their foliage is really beautiful. This heart-shaped foliage that's spotted or striped, and each one is just a little bit different. So these are an indoor plant, and after they're done blooming, in the summer they kind of go into a dormancy. So they kind of need a resting period, and then they can come back. These I do try to bring back if I can for the next season, because they're worth it. Sometimes I put them in the garden temporarily to kind of go dormant in the shade, and then I bring them out for the fall. So now let's talk about some true bulbs. And the Amaryllis. So here's one that's already potted. And this one is going to start blooming in just a few more days. So this one I purchased already potted in soil because I wanted to show you how far along it can get, so you can see a little bit of the flower. This one is a dark red one called Mandela. It's like a dark black red, which is really beautiful. Now you don't have to do them in soil. These aren't super hard. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you buy it. These are some of the biggest bulbs, and these are tropical bulbs. I can't put them outside in the garden. I can do it in the summer, but they won't survive the winter. Now with bulbs, size matters. So the bigger the diameter of the bulb, the more flowers you get. So what you want to look for when you're buying it is a good solid bulb, not mushy, that it has some roots, and that you can, I like to make sure that you can see the flower tips growing. And here you can see that there's at least one coming out and a little bit of leaf. This size bulb may give me 3 stalks of flowers. So 4 or 5 flowers per stalk. I can maybe get 12 flowers out of this one bulb. So try to find the biggest ones that you can get. These I also got mail order, for, like I had gotten my outdoor bulbs, and these I got from Holland Bulb Farms, which is a great resource. So you can grow them in soil, or you can grow them in gravel. So let me show you how to do it in gravel, which is one of the easiest ways to do it. So you want to make sure that you don't bury the whole bulb because it tends to rot. So you want it to be like 2/3 covered like that. And so you have to have room to put gravel around it to weight it down, because even though this is pretty heavy, as the stalks start to grow, this will get sort of, less heavy and very top heavy. So you want to make sure that it has a good size planter to weight it down. And also you're going to have to stake it like this one is, because they get very, very stretchy, especially if they're in a warm room. So the first thing I do, I like to use pea gravel. This is just really cheap pea gravel that costs like $4 or $5 a bag. You can get it at any home improvement store. Okay, so I put some at the base here, just so that the bulb sits here, sits in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to backfill here all this gravel along the sides to hold it in place. And I keep going until it's full, and I start watering it. So these bulbs were dormant, and by watering them and putting them in a warm place, you break the dormancy and they start growing. So these take a full 8 to 10 weeks to bloom. So if you want these for Christmas, you kind of got to start them in October. This one that I'm starting here will probably bloom in January or early February. So I make sure, and I continue filling until it goes all the way to the top. And I just water enough so that the gravel is touching the roots. I don't want water touching this part of the bulb. And these are really, really easy. So a sunny room, if the room is cooler, it'll take a little bit longer to grow, but it'll also grow perhaps a little bit shorter and not be so top heavy. As the flowers grow and finish, I cut off the stem. And you can use any kind of container. This is a beautiful one that my friend Pierre made. It was a little too small for this bulb, but I can use it for a smaller bulb. And also, if you have tiny ones, You can use glass. Glass is really beautiful. You can see the roots growing and it looks really festive and nice. These I got at a thrift store. Thrift stores are great places for like inexpensive vases. So now I'm going to put on my gloves and I'm going to show you one of the more challenging bulbs to grow because you have to give it a cold period. I'm putting on my gloves because I'm allergic to the skin on these hyacinths. So these are hyacinths. And usually they're planted in the garden, but I'm going to force them. That means I'm going to make an artificial winter. I have to give them 10 to 12 weeks of cool weather, not freezing, but like 38 to 45 degrees. After I do that, then I'm going to put them in this glass. This is a hyacinth glass, and they've been used for many centuries. I fill it with water. I put the hyacinth here, and then from this bulb that's been chilled, will grow a beautiful, super fragrant flower. These are magenta colored and they'll be really beautiful. So I'm going to put them in a paper bag in the garage because my garage doesn't freeze. So that's where I'm going to keep them for this artificial winter. You could also put them right in the container if you want to. And I'm going to do some in here and then chill them. The point is that they don't get any light, but they also get cool weather. So you can do them in soil or gravel. And this I can put also in the garage, put a paper bag over it so no light penetrates, and then take them out, I guess now at this point in early March, and they'll start to grow. I want to end with the plant that's new for me. This is Ardesia crenata, or spiceberry, or Christmas berry, or coral berry. This plant in the South and in Florida and Texas is an evergreen shrub. Don't think it would make it through the winter here, but it looks like it has decoration on it for Christmas. So it's really beautiful, and I'm trying it out for this year. It comes in red and white and this beautiful coral, which is the color that I chose. So for the new year, I'm going to try a new plant. Thank you so much for watching my videos all year. You can follow me on Instagram at DeVito and check back in the new year. I'm going to have a brand new website that's going to have tons of content where you can get in touch with me and get personalized gardening advice. Have a really happy holiday, stay safe, and keep gardening.